What's up everyone? Welcome to another new video here on the P1Doks YouTube channel again. This time, same track as the LMP2 guide. We're gonna go through a GTP lap here. Lap was made by Niklas Bohr from P1Doks, but I've driven this track a lot in GTP. Recently Ivra, where I took pole and we won the race as well. So I'm pretty certain how to drive the track and might do some officials this week as well. So yeah, let's get right into it. Right, so here we are then, just before turn 1. Just like the LMP2 guide, I'm gonna try and make it as quick and simple as possible for you to learn. So yeah, gonna play it here. Coming into turn 1 then. In the GTP, you wanna aim to look at the 300 board right here. That's where you're gonna start applying the brake. Do not smash it. Just build up pressure pretty slowly. Reach quite high peak here into turn 1, around 90%, maybe even a little bit more, and then hold it probably the longest distance of the entire track. Turn 1 is where you hold the longest peak pressure in the GTP. So stay on 90, start trail braking when you start turning in. Pretty quick trail off here in turn 1 as it's very angled and banked. Again, just like the LMP2, you can very much smash the throttle here if you hit the entry right, because of the angle and the banking. Don't turn too much, because it's very easy to try and rotate the car too much with the steering wheel here in the GTP. But as it has a lot of banking, it's better to try and rotate it with the input. Only turn around like maximum 60 or 70 degrees. It's probably the max you should turn here. If you turn anything more than that, you've most likely gone over the limit. So yeah, early throttle out, same track limit as in the LMP2. 1 tire left on this curb is what you need, important. Also is flat here. Another good thing to note is this is also nowadays flat on the cold tires in the GTP. You have to be a bit more careful, but it is. And also another thing to note, especially with the GTPs, with traffic here, if you have a GT3 ahead of you coming in here, it's better to go on the outside. And if you have a GT3 in here, usually outside works here as well, but you have to be very cautious with hitting the wall, because you might understeer into it. If the GT3 is like over at the apex right now, it's better to try and slingshot out of it, because that guy or girl is gonna try and get the car out to the wall. Obviously the car floats out, they have to use the track, so it's better to cut in under and go left in that case. This is like a bit of an infamous corner for incidents to happen with traffic, so only go on the outside here if you're extremely certain you're gonna be fully side by side by the apex, because otherwise the GT3 is most likely gonna float out into you, you're gonna crash, and yeah, big drama. So, coming into the bus stop with the most annoying curb in the whole world. Again, in the GTP, start braking slightly after 300 here. It's a bit more of a high-speed corner, so compared to turn 1, you can brake way less. Peak pressure around 40-50%. Important to try and, in this car, keep a little bit of brake. It's going to be a bit more stable over the curb. The LMP2, as you remember, we did full lift off because it was all 4 wheels in the air. So if you locked the tires or had a braking during the flight, you would lock the tires when landing. But the GTP is way softer over the curbs. It always has connection, like it to the ground. Like never is all tires in the air. Like you can see, both right tires are connected with the ground here, and when they lift off, the left tires come down in the ground. So a little bit of braking, and then apply again, slightly increase pressure for this left-hander, cut straight over the curb in the GTP. You can just destroy this curb. Obviously watch for track limits, but I think it's with the middle of the car on the grass, so you're totally fine by taking this much. Now this corner you can also cut a lot more in GTP, but the thing is, when you take so much speed over this one, you're obviously gonna go a bit wide, and you don't really, it's not really necessary to try and go tighter. Just taking more speed like this is better. 1 tire down in the grass, for extra rotation and also taking more speed out of the previous corner. Coming into the long right-hander here. Just like the LMP2, same kind of technique, very little braking and super early throttle. Very aggressive as well. Ferrari is very, very stable on traction recently, and probably you can even go earlier on the throttle than the LMP2 because there's slightly bit more down. It is heavier, but in a corner like that you have slightly bit more downforce. So, and use all of the track here. I'm not even sure what the track limit is here. I think it's the right tires on the curb. Actually, it is. I just remembered. So keep the right tires on the curb, but use all of it compared to the LMP2 where you would be a bit more cautious. But make sure you get in before the grass or right before it. And then over to the right, try and center the car for the braking. Don't arrive over to the right too late. Now in the GTP it's quite difficult to find a braking point here. In the LMP2 we have this gray marking here, but in the GTP nothing really to look at here. What you have to try and do is just fall into the corner. Ease onto the brakes. Very quickly fall off from the peak pressure. Trail brake all the way in. Pretty similar entry to the LB2 here. And a late apex, early throttle. And I talked about this curb also in the previous lap guide. You can use a bit more of this curb in the GTP if you wash out. So just keep that in mind. It's not a dangerous curb in GTP unless you go all the way through grass, and you might lose traction. Another good thing to note in this corner is you can never overtake a GT3 on the outside here. You literally will have less grip than them because it's a bit of angle as well, this corner. So yeah, keep that in mind. Always cut in under and go for the exit to the left or right, depending on your position. But another thing to note for this corner is this one is very, very difficult depending on how the wind is directed. So if you have tailwind here, you're gonna have a very hard time getting traction. If you have tailwind, you're gonna be able to push a little bit harder into the corner, but once you get on throttle, you have to be way more cautious. And same thing goes if the other way, you know, if you have tailwind coming in from this side instead of tailwind on the exit, you're gonna have a lot more understeer on the entry, which means you're gonna have to brake earlier, get it rotated, but once you get on throttle, that tailwind turns into headwind, which means you can go earlier on throttle and you will have more traction as well. And obviously this affects all corners, but especially this one because the grip is pretty limited in this corner, and that's just what I felt from driving, especially in Ivrea. When the wind changed a lot, you can really feel it, especially in the GTP. Coming into this corner, 200 board is you're going to be marking this time. Just like the LMP2, very wide entry going for a late apex. This one is not as affected by the wind. It's a lot more banked than the previous one, and it's uphill, so traction is not really an issue in this one. Get up to the traction limit first, or whatever like the grip allows you to go. It's around 60% on the throttle in this corner. Control that last bit, float out and full throttle. Coming into the low speed section. Right before the 200 board, slightly before actually, you have to go on the brake. Again, like turn 1, quite a long peak pressure here. Have to hold it for a little bit longer as you really have to slow down and it's a low speed corner. Start trail braking when you turn in, not before, just like turn 1. Avoid the curb and get once again like up to around 60% pressure. Smash up to like around 60% pressure because that's what the grip allows you to hit immediately, and then control it from there on. In the Ferrari can use a lot of this curb. Be cautious with it though, because if you hit this curb like a little bit too hard, you might get washed out by understeer and get an off track, which could invalidate an important call lap or anything like that. Coming into this, another technical left-hander. You want to be very cautious with the brake here in the GTP, and that's mostly just it. Get up to the peak pressure, but almost hold it for nothing. Very light braking into the corner. And this corner, you can really see that first bit of the throttle way less compared to the other ones. Like 50% is the initial hit on the throttle compared to what we had, like 60 and 70, and so the rear is limited a lot more by the grip here, and you have to be very much more cautious on that first few percent, and then control it all the way out, and here is where you actually hit full throttle. Another good thing to note, this is also a corner where the wind is affecting a lot. If you have tailwind in here, you're gonna have very good traction, but a lot of understeer on entry or oversteer. It could change a lot. And if you have headwind coming from here, you're gonna have traction issues, but a very simple entry without any big issues really. So yeah, this corner and that one that we were talking about earlier over there is the most, or the two biggest corners to keep in mind when it comes to the wind on this track. And yeah, throttle control, wash out fully. This corner in GTP, you actually have to slightly hit the brake, super slightly, and then on the throttle fully. And this corner is also like a very difficult one because you can take two different lines here. If you want to take the risk, you can go all the way over this curb, leave the left tires here on this part, away from the 3D part, but on this part, and then quickly cut in again. You can gain like 200-300s, but it is more risky because you're more likely to mess up this one from overheating your tires or arriving too late to the left with the weight transfer being very delayed, so you might get understeer into the final corner. So this is the safest way to hit it and most consistent way for sure. But just mentioning, you can go over that curb, bottom out quickly and like come to the left. Obviously you get more speed for the left-hander then, and then cut in over. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it unless you find it better for yourself. Come back over quickly to the left, very slight braking into here because there's a lot of steering wheel or turning going on, and you arrive very early into the corner. And a good thing to note for this corner is to try and always get the exit. Rather overslow it a bit on the entry, because if you overshoot this one, you will lose a lot of time. When you wash out here, there's less angle in the track. Most of it is in here, which means most of the grip is in there. Also marbles here, so you might wash out into the wall, get damage, invalidate your lap, and blah blah blah. And then just one final thing to note about this last sector is if you have a GT3 coming into this corner, if you're right behind it, it's better to try and set this corner up, cut in under the GT3 to the left here, and try and clear him before the corner, because in most cases they're gonna try and defend the inside, even though they're supposed to take the racing line, if you go for the inside here. But you don't want to be stuck behind a GT3 here, because you could lose 0.5 to a second. So always try and if you're right behind one, cut in under instead of waiting for the inside, because they're in 50% of the cases just gonna defend it or go in the middle. So force the racing line, stay to the left if that happens, and make sure you're clear before the apex so you don't turn in and get spun out. And then in the GTP you want to get out all the way to the wall. You still bottom a bit on this 3D curve, but it doesn't affect anything. And yeah, that's the GTP guide for Watkins Glen. I'm gonna play the entire video here from Niklas, or this entire onboard lap, so you can have a look for yourself. And other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I did this one on request. We'll see if we can get a GT3 one out from Basilios or someone else. But yeah, make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.